Hello there, wrestling fans, and welcome to the close of Canadian Wrestling Week on the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. I am your host, Joe the Panther, the third. And man, Canadian Wrestling Week. Man, you left us, but no worry, you'll be back very, very soon. And man, why not have an awesome female wrestler that's really coming up in the wrestling world? Introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kat Von Heez. I'm a 11-year Canadian wrestling vet, and I wrestle all over Canada. Have been to the United States as well as Mexico. So yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem. And I'm so happy because I talked to wrestlers from all over the world, and I was like, man, I gotta highlight Canada because Canada has a lot of very good, very awesome, superstar up and coming stars, like upperclassmen, Jefferson James. We got, oh my gosh, Riley Riley Rose. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It all starts out with Brett and Owen and the Hart family and
Yeah.
Bulldogs and people like that, and then the new breed of Canadian wrestlers that are coming in the wrestling world now. So my first question for you is who trained you?
So my first trainer was a guy by the name of Mentalo. He's been wrestling for nearly going on the 30-year mark shortly, I believe. Um, and then when I moved to Alberta, I was mentored by Vance Nevada, but then trained under Monster Pro Wrestling's banner with Sean Dunster and Phil LaFawn. And later on in my career, I moved to Ontario and trained with Scott Demore and Johnny Devine.
Mm.
Mm.
So what kind of advice did they give you that stuck with your wrestling style and the way you move around in the ring?
Um, I would say like intensity, like intention. There were times in my career I feel like where I listened to other people and pulled away from that just because they made me question like my style because it is more um like not strong style per se, but it is not exactly like light working and what's the word I'm looking for? It's just for me it's I like that realism. I like pretending like I was in a real fight kind of idea, and so everything is done with intention and intensity. So, ever since in the last couple years since post COVID, I've really come into going back to my roots. Even though there were times where I had myself questioning whether that's the way the wrestling business is these days, but I feel much more confident now than I did a couple years ago. Uh, Going back to what my trainers have all said is just do everything with intention, do everything with intensity, and it usually pans out for the best that way.
Awesome. So I know the internet now you could watch a lot of wrestling and stuff like that. So explain to my American wrestling fans that are kind of not really, they watch a lot of the indie fan stuff in America. What kind of wrestling style would you could if they want to find you on YouTube, what kind of wrestling style would you say that you do?
Well, I'm definitely not a flyer. I definitely would say I'm more of a brawler. But I mean, there's some technicality behind that as well. I don't just go in there and do like gimmick matches and such. I don't mind gimmick matches, but ultimately, I do want there to be the technical wrestling, and I kind of like to sprinkle it up with some athleticism, like things that I'm good at, like my flexibility is a feature and such. But it's definitely, I would say, more along the lines of more old school with sprinkled new school. I mean, it's definitely not the same as like what 80s wrestlers were doing. But I don't consider myself completely new school either. So I guess for me, it's more legit, like fighting. I don't really do the flying and all of that stuff as much. So it might not be for everybody, but I always find that again, I go in there with intensity and intention. And you're never going to question whether or not there's legitimacy in my shots. and such like that. You won't question that.
So if you if there were if like you're watching the internet right now or you Instagram or like Twitter, is there any like wrestlers that you've been watching that you like been dying to get like to wrestle or work with them that you haven't had a chance to do yet?
Well, for me, I because I am more of that base type wrestler, I do prefer or I do like working with flyers because we really complement each other quite a bit and it really diversifies the playing field because it works well with my power and strength, and then they have their speed, agility, and their flying maneuvers. So, I mean, one that like I've met her a long time ago, and we did a couple things together very early in her career, but we haven't really crossed paths in the ring since, which would be like Laney Luck. I've been trying to make that happen for a while. And Alley Catch as well. I've been on a couple shows with her since, but I haven't had the chance to share the ring with her since I met her all those years ago. So I'd really like to work with those girls. Um, and I mean, with AWE or AEW and stuff, there's quite a few girls now that like Sky Blue and Jade Cargill. Like obviously, all those girls are such a high caliber of female wrestler that I would love to get in the ring with almost anybody on that roster. But from the indies perspective, I would say those two, like Lainey and Allie, are two that I think would complement my style quite well, and we'd have some pretty good matches together.
Mm. So, would you like if you were ever booked to fight a man, would you ever do it or like you're like, I don't
Oh
know.
no, most of my early career, was built off intergender wrestling.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, like don't have the exact amount of matches, but I've wrestled. Like there were years where I would say 60% of my matches were intergender because of the lack of female talent, especially early in my career. Um, Across two provinces, I feuded with my own husband for 2 years.
Mm.
So that leads to some pretty interesting storylines for most people sitting at home.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I'm totally down. I think like I because I wrestle, I do really enjoy wrestling men. I do find that again, it leaves a giant opening for what I can do because there's a lot of stuff that I can't do with girls that I can do with a guy, and I can't really think of anyone like like specific necessarily. Like, there's only one guy that I think I really want to work an intergender match before I ever pack it in or he packs it in. I don't think it's ever a likely thing that would happen, but I mean, if it did happen, it would be super solid. I'd like to wrestle Brian Cage in a singles. I just think it'd be really cool. He's obviously got strength and power, and like the basing would be amazing for someone like me. And that's kind of been the only intergender match I ever wanted to kind of like see happen. But I'm totally down to wrestling guys almost in any show if it's possible.
Awesome. So, let's talk about the thing with oh my gosh, the Mountie. Let's talk about that.
The Wrestle Academy with Jacques
Yes,
Rougeau.
let's talk about the Wrestle Academy.
Yeah. Is there anything specific you kind of wanted to know, or
Like, let's just talk about the academy. Like, it sounds awesome because I before we're recording, like as I told you, I'm a huge fan of old school wrestling and like the 80s and 90s. Like, what kind of like has advice has he given you with this whole like adventure with the academy?
I mean, he's really providing a good platform for Canadian wrestlers to get noticed, and also to learn and grow and work with different people that we might not get to work with. He likes to kind of give in his advice with how your matches are going, and he really has an insight that is different than some other people that we've worked with in terms of like how to put the story together a little bit like more cohesively and really complementing each other with like our styles and stuff. And sometimes you get these really odd mixtures of people, and he's really got some good insight on how to put those two workers together. But yeah, like it's a great competition. There's the initial quarterfinals round where then the um, a group of people from those matches are selected to then move on to the semifinals. And then you wrestle a whole new group of people. And the judge will then pick X amount of people from that round as well, and then move into the finals. And from there, this year they're doing two male winners and one female winner, and the winners receive $10,000 and 3 months scholarship at the Nightmare Factory with QT Marshall, Cody Rhodes, Billy Gunn, and it's a really really cool opportunity that, to be honest, in Canada, a lot of us haven't really gotten the same looks and the same opportunities to go to these kinds of schools and competitions because of how far apart everything is. Obviously, a lot of the major brands are based out of the United States, so it's a lot harder for us to go across and work there. Um, but yeah, it's such a cool concept for a show. It's been a pleasure to do it, and just a lot of learning experiences all around.
Awesome. So like what like let's talk a little bit more about the school. Like are you like to get into this whole thing, do they have to like select you randomly, or do you like enter like a video, or did they see you somewhere and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I mean, we were introduced through a promoter that was like had worked with him in the past in Quebec, and we all sent in basically like promo videos and linked to kind of like a highlight reel that needed to be about a minute or less. So you had to kind of get your best clips while also cutting a promo, kind of stating who you are very quickly, trying to get who you are very quickly in a short, like 10-15 second moment. Those were all sent then to Jacques Rougeau and QT Marshall, and then they kind of just go through the list based on your look, your the way you talk, and obviously your highlight reel, and decide what are going to be the talents selected to kind of start the competition. So not everybody went through with the audition process, and then it's kind of cool that you get selected. It's one of those things where you kind of feel honored to be included in something with the caliber of talent. Especially this year, the talent has been unreal with both men and female. Like, there's just so much talent here, and I think they made a lot of great choices with the roster. But yeah, then from there, like I said, it's just it's such a cool experience because you do your match, and they watch it, and while whether you win or lose on the show, it has more to do with like what potential they saw. And even if you don't make it, there's still a lot of potential where you could come back and they might give you a second opportunity or give you a highlight match in the final show so you can showcase your stuff in front of QT Marshall in the event that maybe he sees something with your growth and your training. So it really pushes you. I feel like these opportunities, um, normally people feel like they get complacent, but because there's so much riding on this and such a big opportunity, you feel more compelled to like get to the camps or like take on more shows, get your reps in, and develop your character and work on your promo, and really think about your move set and see what you have to offer to a show. And sometimes you feel like you don't do that without these types of incentives. So it's a really cool concept and a big opportunity for people to kind of look at what they can offer the show, and who they are as a performer, and really grow in that time frame.
Awesome. So if you had a chance to travel to a different country like America or overseas, where would you go and why?
Japan is like my big one. I would say I definitely feel like my style would relate and transfer there better than a lot of other places. I've worked with a couple of girls from Japan in the past, and it felt really natural to work with them. And yeah, like I was kind of, there was an opportunity for me to go at one point. Sadly, because of a visa issue at the time, it just didn't kind of work out. So kind of one of those regrets for me. But there is always, a door open and such. And I ended up taking that chance to go train elsewhere and go work into the States a lot more at that time. Then also got a broke into Mexico. And then I would really like to do a tour of Europe, like kind of to go to the UK and Germany and a couple of other countries, and just kind of do a European tour. Those are kind of my two big ones. But Japan, if I had to pick one place, would definitely be number one for me.
Mm. So, besides wrestling, do you have any hobbies?
Um, I'm a vocalist, and I've performed in several bands and done a lot in the past when I was younger with symphonies and such. And yeah, I it's another passion of mine. Was fortunate enough to be able to make some money doing that as well, and um, I had to kind of pick whether it was wrestling or music, and I've had more of a passion for wrestling at the time, and music allows me to kind of be a therapy, and I can just if I'm going through stuff, I can use that as a hobby. But it was nice to be in a band and be with people that like that as well, and the gym and competing in other sports. So pre-COVID and a little bit during COVID, I did a little bit of strongman competitions and such as well, and really enjoy doing those kinds of things as well.
Awesome. So, like, Cap, like the week of like a wrestling show for you, what is your schedule like building up to a show?
Uh, well, I mean, luckily, I mean, right now the scene up here is super busy. So even just like this week, I had like my Sunday, Monday, which was like work, my day to day profession. And then I had a show out of town on Tuesday. So we had to be on the road for 6:37 o'clock to get to a convention 4 hours away. And we wrestled at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and did the show and then drove back and then went to work the next day. So usually after work on my days that I'm not wrestling is the gym or go to a camp or something like that. Or if I know what my matches are coming up, I watch the opponent I'll be wrestling, or if we'll be doing triple threats or anything like that. I start to really study triple threat matches to get some ideas as what I can do in the match, and also, if it's a person that I've never worked before, I really like to study their maneuvers, how they work, their body language, so that I can really be prepared when I get there to give the show the best I can with that person. Um, and yeah, so sometimes I'd say on average, I have 2 shows a week, sometimes four or more. There's a lot of tours in Canada, more so than I find in the US and other countries. So if it's like a week with 4 shows, I have a string of 4 shows in August from the 2nd to the 5th. So, I'll work a couple days and then pack up and like really get myself set up with meal prep and everything so that I'm not scrounging for food. And I have like, usually, unfortunately, we don't get a lot of gym time on those tours. So we usually like to bring bands and come up with a static workout we can do in the hotel rooms or in the ring that kind of allow us to keep limber and in shape while we're on these kinds of tours for 4 days and stuffed into a tiny car with four other giant human beings.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
So,
Must be crazy. That must be insane because, like, you're on this trip with these four people, and you have to entrust them in a car that they won't fall asleep, and you're driving, and one of them breaks the wind of the 50 demons, and you're driving, and they're all sleeping, and someone breaks that I said breaks that one wind of the horrible demons, and you're like, okay, which one of you motherfuckers did
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
You have
I,
to be like the mom. You have to be like the mom with the children all in the backseat who farted.
yeah, I've earned the nickname on some tours as Mother Goose. So
Who
that's me.
needs a diaper change back there? Shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I married a wrestler, so I'm kind of like stuck in that car 24/7 um at home, but I know he's great. He does really well, and we're again, it's nice to have a travel partner like that where um we have a lot of good times on the road together. So, yeah.
So, what is your favorite food after a show?
Oh, after a show, I mean, I don't really have like a favorite. I mean, like I would love to have um like some sort of like stir fry after a show, but unfortunately, like ideally, like that's ideally, but it doesn't always happen. A lot of times we go to sponsors and it's like pub food, so you kind of do
Mhm.
the best you can with a budget. Because you, I mean, they really don't want to like spend a ton of money eating on the road all the time. So when I do prep, I usually bring like, um, I have like protein breads, and I bring like lean turkey sandwiches and stuff like that, and kind of just try to plan ahead. But no, I definitely prefer like stir fries post match, because
Awesome.
it's like healthy carbs, lots of veggies, good amount of protein. And then it's more like satiating, so you don't really feel like eating a bunch of snacks when you're on the road either. But that's ideal. It doesn't, nothing about wrestling road trips are ideal though.
Yeah, as I said, it's like tough because when you're on the road doing this stuff for a living that you love so much, it's kind of hard. So, my last question for you, if there was a young male or female wrestler, young person that really, oh my gosh, they want to get into the wrestling business so bad, but they don't know where to go.
Mhm.
What kind of advice would you give them to make them feel like they could do this journey like you have?
I mean, I always ask people, I mean, I tell people like make sure this is what you want. It's um to really be successful. It takes a lot of drive, and it takes a lot of um persistence, and a thick skin to do it. And in the process, you're going to sacrifice a lot. So that's not to discourage anybody from doing it. It's just the reality of the situation. A lot of people kind of go in thinking it's easier than it is. And it's just not. Like, I mean, I have a lot of friends that are successful, but didn't see their family for 5 years, and lost a lot of friends in the process, because you just can't keep up those relationships. But beyond that, if that's really what you want, if this is something you really want to pursue, the biggest piece of advice I can give is, um, go get a reputable trainer. Like, find someone that has a good name and a good reputation, who can teach you the business from inside the ring, outside the ring, and can teach you how to market yourself, especially with the new platforms that exist today. I mean, when I broke in, I think Facebook was really the only thing that existed. I mean, MySpace was still a thing back
Yep.
then, so learning how to do those things. Obviously, I feel like more of the younger generation is more equipped to do the social media than I would have been equipped to do. But
Yep.
yeah, the trainer is really like the biggest thing. Spend the money on a good trainer. Like, I mean, the Nightmare Factory, for example, like the Jacques Rougeau thing. Going to school like that, where you have reputable trainers that can get you your foot in the door, and teach you really the ins and outs of like a bigger company, and like what they're looking for. Places like in Edmonton here, we have Top Talent Wrestling, who I wrestle for, on they have shows every 2 months. Very good school locally, very reputable trainer. And there's like Strong Style Academy in Calgary with Johnny Devine. There's a lot of, you just want somebody that can teach you the ropes, and then get your foot in the door, and send you on your way with confidence. And then the other thing, when it comes to like this, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to tell you you can't do it, and that you're not cut out for the business. Um, but don't worry about what other people think. You know what I mean? If this is your dream, as long as you're working as hard as you can work, and you're putting your best foot forward, no, the business isn't for everybody, but I'm a big fan of hardworking people. That's why I respect Riley Rose so much. That girl puts in her time. She's humble, she's respectful, and she has so much potential. And I told her same thing, like, you're going to have a lot of people that when you finally feel like you're successful, that want to tear you down, but their opinion doesn't matter. Everybody, like, the pay surround yourself with people that want to see you succeed, and that want to give you the tools to succeed. And ultimately, if you have all those structures in place, you have an unlimited amount of strength and power to do this. And just keep going if this is your dream.
Awesome. Yeah, Riley is like, my gosh, that girl. Like,
Yeah.
so as I said before, we there's so many like up and comers like you and like uh Jefferson James, and my gosh, the list goes on and on and on. Like there's so many Canadian wrestlers that I have not had on this podcast yet that like that are out there. If you when you see these wrestlers in your like there's a few that, oh my gosh, when we're done, there's Nikita. I've been dying to have her on the podcast because most people don't even know who Nikita is.
Yeah.
She's coming to the States. I've heard some rumors she's coming. So I'm like, I gotta go to the show.
Yeah.
So
She's I met her at Academy like a couple weeks ago too. That was the
yeah,
first time I had interacted with her, and she's again, she's a great person. She's got a great gimmick, and she's athletic and talented. So yes, anyone that has her on the show is in for a treat for sure.
yeah. Kat, I want to thank you so much for taking my opportunity to come on the podcast, and thank you for helping me close Canadian Wrestling Week with an awesome wrestler.
Oh,
You know,
thank you.
I'm Joe Panther the Third,
I'm Kat Von Heez.
and we will catch you in the next one. Good night, Canada.